Hi, this is Wendy Kendrick with my mini unit presentation for third grade on finding area in rectangles. The standards I'm going to be dealing with are making sure the students know how to categorize shapes to start with before we even launch into finding the area of a rectangle. So then we're going to look at finding the area of a rectangle, but doing so by tiling it using square units, making sure that students understand the area is the whole interior of the rectangle and that they can find that by counting and adding up all the individual square units. Then moving forward into making sure they recognize they can also multiply the sides of a rectangle and get the area and the way that those are connected with the addition of all the tiles or all the square units and the multiplication of the sides of those square units and seeing the connection there. And then we're finally going to apply it to a real life problem. So the objectives of my various lessons within this mini unit: lesson 1, students will be able to categorize shapes. Lesson 2, students are going to demonstrate the understanding of finding the area of a rectangle by making the square units form a grid inside. Then lesson 3, they will be able to find the area of a rectangle through multiplication of its side lengths. And lesson 4, they're going to demonstrate their understanding of area as it relates to designing a dream house for themselves with a floor plan and creating various sized rooms and having to communicate to me what the area of each room is. So lesson 1 will be fairly simple, except it's really going to focus on showing the connections that the various shapes have in common. There will be activities and partner pairing with games, and they will finish up by finishing a worksheet where they'll identify correctly the different shapes and what they fall under. Then in lesson 2, while they are cutting out these square units, which they will use then to put inside of rectangles, so this form of manipulatives, I'll be reading if you were a quadrilateral or if you were a polygon, to emphasize the information we learned the day before of different shapes and give them something fun to watch and listen to while they're cutting out. And then they're going to fill in their rectangles using the square units, and they'll work in pairs when we're finished with the I do and we do of this lesson. They'll work in pairs in a game where they are competing with each other. So it should be fun. In lesson 3, students will notice the difference of not putting all the squares in, but just putting them down the sides of the rectangle, 2 sides, and being able to multiply those and see the connection there. So that's in the I do, I'll model that. And then in the we do, I'm going to introduce these on the board, on the whiteboard, and invite students to come up and demonstrate how they think they get the area and try to solve and let the students teach each other and then let them correct one another. Then they'll move into the you do, which is another great game called Raging Rectangles, where the students roll pair dice and then they have to multiply those together and create a rectangle, and whoever clears their board the most on their page wins the game. So that should also be fun for them. And finally, lesson 4, this is the dream house that has the STEAM and the writing component. So the writing component of this is going to be, they're going to have to be very creative and tell me why their house is worth $1 million to be sold. So that should be fun. And then they're going to have to build this dream house. And I have plans of cardboard and building walls around it, but the backing up first, before we even get to that final piece, they'll be given a packet. And in the packet, they'll be given a dream map, which is the bottom corner of this slide. And they can come up with whatever rooms they want in their house. So that should be creative. And then they're going to have a page where they have to create an art rendition of their favorite room so they can really deck that thing out. Then they're going to figure out the mapping. So they have a practice grid page for their floor plan. And then what you're seeing on this page right here is the final grid page of a student. They're going to have to calculate the perimeter and the area of each room and the way that they figure it out. So I included perimeter because I'm assuming that I've already taught this. And so this would be another component that they already know. This should take 2 to 3 days to complete. And this leads into my backwards mapping. This is how I decided how I would formulate this unit, because I knew that the end result I wanted was for them to be able to complete that dream house packet. So what do I need to do to get them to that place? I knew that I wanted them to be able to understand the multiplication of the area, but I wanted it to make sense. So they also then needed to understand the how square units get added up, and that is equivalent to multiplying the sides of a rectangle and finding the area that way. And then I knew I wanted them to understand the shapes, because after this mini unit, we're going to move into trapezoids. And so I want them to understand the difference between a trapezoid and a rectangle or parallelogram. The thing I found most challenging about this was finding ways to clearly assess the students individually so that I didn't move ahead too quickly and leave some students behind. Even though this is an imagined mini unit, that really would be the holdup for me. And so it was interesting searching and looking for quality assessment tools. And my success, I really enjoyed doing the backwards mapping, because once I knew what my goal was, it made it so much easier to know how I needed to build, but doing so backwards, it kept it more confined and organized and clear. So I really liked that process. Thanks so much.